Now let's get into conversation on public-private partnerships, PPPs, the buzzword of the season, with Kefa Seda, who is the Director General for PPPs at the National Treasury. Karibu, Kefa.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to be in this session. Yes.
It's very nice to have you. Before anything else, Jano has a quote for you.
Oh.
You can tell us what it says to you, if it speaks anything, if it rings true, if it's false, whichever.
I was about to go into what?
If it doesn't make sense, just say.
You can just say pass. No judgment. It's a safe space. Lima Bawi, Liberian peace activist, social worker, and Nobel laureate. In 2012, during a summit in New York, she said, "You can never leave footprints that last if you are always walking on tiptoe." Do you agree with that?
You can never leave footprints
That last if you are always walking on tiptoe.
I would want to agree with that. Yes.
You have to make an impact.
You need to make an impact, and
Right.
it has to be a lasting impact. And you need to be grounded, so you don't need to tiptoe. Yes. Yes.
Lakini usitembee kwa shamba ya mtu ati unakanyanga tu hivyo ndio lasting impact.
Why must you be so literal?
Ukitembea kanyaga.
Tiptoe kwa shamba ya mtu.
Walk with your whole chest.
Usikanyange maharagwe ya mtu kwa shamba hivi.
Madharau, ni mbaya. PPPs. Yes, Mariam said it's been a buzzword, I think, for the last decade, half a decade.
Yeah, half.
Yes.
It feels, okay, maybe ni mimi sikuwa na watch news
Yeah.
before then, but it feels a bit more recent to me. Like, sikuwa nasikia stories of PPP, Kibaki for sure. Uhuru later years, then you start hearing PPP.
Yes.
PPP.
Explain.
Tueleze.
PPP is not a new phenomenon in this country. Neither is it a new phenomenon in the globe. Back then, under the energy sectors, we had PPPs in the 1980s, but then we didn't have a robust legal and regulatory framework that you could speak about PPPs, because all procurements were done under the Public Procurement and Disposal Act, which had a schedule providing for procurement of PPPs. Now, fast forward in 2011, we developed a PPP policy document, which informed what needed to be done. Then come 2013, we had now the substantive PPP Act of 2013, and its attendant regulation came in 2014. For those who remember, we started with the first mover PPPs way back in 2012 with the concept notes. We went into the market in 2014 just to get proposals, and the first mover PPP projects comprised of Nairobi-Nakuru Summit Road Project. We had Nairobi-Mombasa, also a highway project. We had Nairobi Southern Bypass within Nairobi City. Then we had Nairobi Thika. So, and lastly, we had the second Nyali Bridge. So that constituted the first mover under the road sector. We had quite a number under the energy sector, and I think that's when we started going out big time on PPPs after having the robust legal and regulatory framework. So after then, quite a number of PPPs have come up. We are all aware that currently we have an amended PPP Act of 2021, which was just put in place just to streamline the processes, provide clarity, also provide timelines so that we don't have open-ended processes for PPP projects.
Yes. It all sounds very, very technical. Yes. If we just think about it, PPP, fast mover, and so on and so forth. As far as we're concerned, our infrastructure, for a long time, we've known infrastructure, government, a company is then contracted to build. At what point can a citizen just look and know that this project is under PPP and this one is government funded? Because let's just be clear, right? Help us to understand. When we put money in the budget to do a road, that is state funded, taxpayer funded, right? A PPP is when money is not coming from a budget to go and build a road. It is coming from Kefa to go and build a road. And then we will have to find ways of paying Kefa.
Precisely.
Over a long time to pay. Now, when I'm driving around a road and I see a power project here, I see a windmill there, how do I know what's PPP and what's not?
I think we've not done well in terms of communicating to the public. And it's something that you're trying to set up currently. But if you look at our PPP Act, it provides for mechanisms for disclosure. Apparently, the disclosure only happened once the contract has been executed, trying to give details around the contract, what it is. But that notwithstanding, when we initiate a project under PPP as government, under the competitive framework, we advertise. That goes into the public domain that this project that is coming up, it's going to be PPP. So in that way, we communicate with the public, not necessarily on the specifics. The only time we communicate specifics is when we now contract. But we've tried moving away from that. Recently, after assuming office in April, in May, the CS gave out guidelines for disclosures. And all these disclosures are supposed to be publicized or disclosed to the public. When you advertise, that's a disclosure. When you render any decision on any project, depending on the phase, you have to make a disclosure. This is just to build public trust, to give confidence to the public and try to be transparent. Most importantly, when you talk about the privately initiated proposal, and I think that's where the mambo iko. Hapo ndio pali mambo iko. The guidelines also provide mechanisms for disclosure. When we receive unsolicited proposal, which we call now the privately initiated proposals, we have to make a disclosure at the point of receipt. We disclose who has submitted, what project is it, what the scope is, what the costings are, and any other relevant information that may be deemed fit to be disclosed without touching on intellectual elements or which are of commercial nature.
Okay.
So if you saw recently for Nairobi Nakuru, we did receive PIPs. They were disclosed. Once the committee made the decisions after evaluation by Kenya, and it was brought to PPP Directorate, who also reviewed it and tabled it before the committee, and the committee rendered its decision, that disclosure was also made. We are just trying to see how we can communicate effectively, be transparent in our processes so that we can earn public trust on our PPP projects.
I'm trying to think through. So right now, if Mariam Enterprises initiates a proposal, writes down a proposal to help dual Nairobi Mombasa, and I...
Yeah.
Yes, Magadi Road.
Yes, Magadi
Let's do
Road.
much. By the way, in case you're
Long overdue,
Putting it
right?
out there.
putting it out there, and you're a proper, person, please initiate a public-private, yes, on the dueling of Magadi Road. So say Mariam Bishar was in that business and she initiates that. Where you said there'll be disclosure, where? And I know that was the problem of the past. So how recently, one, has it come that we have to see disclosure for any privately initiated PPP? And how many privately initiated PPPs have we had before then? Yes, and now in the event that Mariam Enterprises decides they want to help government dual Magadi Road, where will that disclosure be found?
Thank you for that question, Mariam. When you submit the PIP, you submit it to the contracting authority. It doesn't come straight to National Treasury, PPP Directorate, because we are the gatekeepers on all PPP processes. So what you do, you submit your PIP for Magadi. Magadi, I think, still falls under Kenya.
Is it?
It's a national trunk road, so you submit your PIP to Kenya. What Kenya does, first you submit your PIP together with some proposal review fee in accordance to the law. Once you submit it, what Kenya does is to review to make sure that it meets the criteria set out in the law. Once it passes that criteria, then Kenya has to escalate their findings. And as they do that, they also do a background check on who Mariam Enterprises is, just to make sure we are dealing with the right person through the normal KYC. Then the proposals comes to the PPP Directorate. We also have to review what Kenya has done, just to make sure that all the checks have been put in place, all the boxes have been ticked, all the relevant criteria stipulated in law has been met.
So what does I think that road is under Kura. If I think Langata Road is not Kenya. So
wait, Langata Road is not Kenya?
No.
By Jove, Langata Road is a highway.
Urban roads.
It's Kaban.
But there should be,
should
be a sign saying it, right?
It's not a
Have you seen the
A104.
Mbagathi, the Timor?
Yes, the overpass.
The overpass?
Yeah.
It's clearly labeled who's done it. It's
Okay.
Kura. So let's just say
You're right,
the authority.
actually.
Let's say Kura,
Latif,
Mariam Enterprises, amepeleka ile.
Latif, I have to correct you.
Ni Kenya?
Nimetoka Kenya juzi.
Sawa.
Hizo daraja unaongea, Kenya ndo alifanya.
Very good. So Kenya has received Mariam's. So Kenya is checking Mariam is a human being, yes. Mariam has a company, yes. Registered in Kenya, yes. Mariam has submitted a proposal and says, I want to do all the highway, yes. From where to where, yes. What else? Are they looking at how much she's
charging?
She's proposing?
Definitely, we have to look and ascertain whether the proposal that is being provided presents a value for money proposition.
Okay.
That is something that has to be checked. So we look at your rates, whether they make sense from a market.
I'm at Kera.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're at Kenya.
So Kenya is doing all these things.
They have to do all this.
So is there somewhere where Kenya can actually disqualify this PIP, not even bring it to the PPP Directorate?
Precisely, and quite a number of PIPs have been disqualified on different areas. One, for us to consider PIP, it must meet the public interest criteria. So there has to be a need, there has to be a problem that it's trying to solve. Two, it has to meet the PPP criteria where you're looking at financial viability, economic viability, and if the approach for PPP is also viable. And that's where we do the value for money assessment in terms of costing and everything else. Then lastly, you have to also to check that the project is affordable, both to government, and if it's going to be a user pay, it has also to be affordable to Latif, Mariam, and Mbukwa. So all those we look in totality and make a decision. Can this project fly? Then we make a decision, yes, it has to fly. It can fly.
Sometimes people say that PPPs prioritize investor returns over public service.
I don't think so. This is something that there has to be a balance, because I come in as an investor. I'm coming in as a businessman. There has to be some returns for me to make. And in this case, let me say there has to be some modest returns for me to make. At the same time, it has to also to present value for money to government and by extension to the consumers of that particular service. So there has to be a balance. So it's not just a focus on making money, because if at all that's the case, then I think we'll disenfranchise the consumers of that particular service.
Are there guidelines for what these modest returns are?
Precisely, we normally look at the market rates when you talk about returns. Many times I see guys putting in returns between 10% to 18%. They're dependent from sector to sector. Sometimes you'd find companies say we can only invest if we can only get returns of this much. And sometimes we push back, because at the end of the day, when the returns, the rate of returns are high, it means the project will also be costly. It's a pass-through cost to the users. Yes.
So again, but there's no guideline that is set somewhere that says
there's no cap.
Yeah, cap that says can't go above 18% of the market rate.
No. Within our legal framework, we don't have a cap. We don't have a cap. These are it should be a negotiated settlement. Yes.
Is that worth reviewing, do you think?
Sorry?
Is that worth reviewing, you think?
Yes, it's worth looking at. It's something that we can look at, but it's dependent from sector to sector. Yes.
This is the PIP we're talking about.
Yes.
So Mariam has come to Kenya and said, you know what, I have this brilliant idea. I've talked to residents of Rongai, all the way to Konabaridi, all the way to Magadi, and they really, really suffer. So I think we can do all this road, all the way to Lake Natron. Okay?
Actually, all the way to Lake Natron. Why not?
Oh my gosh,
That's
Lake Natron.
Magadi.
Yes.
Yes.
To the border.
Yes.
And this is my proposal. Kenya, Gazeti, bah! Mariam has come. She has this brilliant idea. And Eric is like, this is a good idea. Eric can submit his PIP. And Kenya will have to look at that PIP. And now we'll start competing with the original idea by Mariam.
Not necessarily, because when you submit your PIP, you are submitting an independent proposal. When Mariam comes, she also submits her own independent proposal. And many times you find that the proposals are varied. And that's why when you look at our law, it also creates a mechanism. If at all we receive more than one, then upon the decision of the committee, it can decide to say, okay, there's public interest in this, quite a number of people are coming in, why don't we go for competitive process? So you distill what the project scope, plus the parameters, you take it to the market, let people compete and give you back proposals.
Okay.
Yes.
From the user perspective, it's a good thing that you're getting more to look at.
Yes.
But from the investor perspective, now this is not a good thing.
It's not a good thing, and many times what I see investors do, they push for exclusivity.
Yeah.
And sometimes when they push for that exclusivity, what would they do? At the end of the day, when you're negotiating, they'll give you the short end of the stick. So what should ordinarily happen is that the implementing institutions, before they embark on a PIP journey, we should also have our own reference model.
Okay.
We should have our own reference feasibility studies, such that when we get a PIP, we can make a comparison. If government were to take this to the market, how would it look like vis-a-vis the privately initiated proposals that are coming in? Yes.
Now, we all know that...
But there's one question which she asked, which I didn't respond to. How do you make these disclosures? Once we've reviewed, when they receive, they make disclosures. This is what we received, this is how it looks like, without...
That's Kenha now.
That's Kenha now.
Without
now,
deducting anything.
Without
Even
deducting anything. We have to be transparent because this is what we've received. Then it goes through the due process of evaluations. Once you evaluate, you make a decision, then you say, this is fit, then you go to the next time of the next step of approval, and you make disclosure as well. And you're making disclosure. We make disclosures.
In this case, who is you make? Because are we still at Kenha, or now we've moved to
the disclosures are made by the contracting authorities.
Okay.
Yes.
Still
by the contracting authorities. They make them in the newspapers.
Okay.
They also upload in their website.
Okay.
Yes. And I hope that has answered your question. How are the
disclosures made? Yes.
Yeah.
So I wanted to come into somebody who has close links with government, knows government plans, all right? Looking at the population growth in the area of Rungai, going all the way to Kiserian, going into Ngong, into Kajiado, there is therefore need to start expanding these roads. And the Kenya Roads Board has been discussing this at the ministry, and the agencies can have also been discussing this. And they've been saying, I think we need to start thinking, how much would it cost? Some engineers have started doing the math of what it would cost to actually do this road. Engineer talks to Mariam and says, Wekai proposal. This is around how much it would cost. Right?
Simply, yeah. Mariam Janu is her relative. Janu works at Kenha, or is an engineer, and tells her,
Or is a friend, or
Is a
they're
friend,
just,
yeah.
huko nyamachoma weekends, but
Yes.
unajua hii barabara hii,
inahitaji
kuwa
kuwa
expanded.
alafu Mariam ndio anakuja na proposal. Kenha. Ndio hiyo.
Are there any safeguards against such?
That's a difficult way. Where you find an insider colluding with an external party, it becomes a little bit difficult, because at what point would you know that this has been shared out?
Also,
but
when
definitely.
is it collusion? Because it could just be, Jano and Mariam are having nyama trauma, and she's like, hii barabara lazima ikuwe dual. And then a light bulb clicks in my... It's not collusion. She didn't tell me so that I initiate them. It could be that, but maybe not. It was just banter, and then now I had a light bulb.
She told you phase one ends at...
or you could easily treat it as information leak, not necessarily collusion. So when such kind of the information leaks out to private investors, I don't think there's really much that we can do. The thing is, do we follow the due process to ascertain that the parameters or the criteria set out have been met?
Okay.
In terms of costing, does it make sense to government?
So as long as it goes through a proper, thorough
Due process.
Yes. Then at the end of the day, it's value for money. It's value for the residents of this area that's going to be served.
Yes.
Whether it's water and all. This is PIP.
Yes.
It is not the only way that you can get into PPP.
Yes.
We have two others.
We have, we have the 4 procurement methods. We have got unsolicited.
Just mention them, and then we go to a break, then you'll come and...
We've
explain
got
to us in detail.
unsolicited, where the private entity initiates the process. Then the second method is where government initiates the process. Where government initiates, we've got 3 methods. We've got the open competitive process. Then we've got the restricted. And we have now the direct procurement, similar akin to what we have under the Public Procurement and Disposal Act.
What was the second one after unsolicited?
It's government initiated.
Initiative.
And we have 3 methods: open competitive, restricted, and direct procurement.
Okay.
Yes.
You'll explain those ones shortly.
Yes.
And give us examples where any of this has worked. In Kenya, whether there are any. But let's take a break first, and then we'll come and continue this conversation. We are hosting Kefa Seda. He is the Director General of the Public-Private Partnership Directorate. which sits, when he says the cabinet secretary, he means the cabinet secretary for the National Treasury and Economic Planning. So it sits there. And they have a symposium as well where we can go and engage a lot more. And it's just, biashara gani ziko kwa nini sahi tunaweza. He'll tell us more about that. Keep it here. It's coming up to 9 a.m. Good morning. Back in a moment.
There.
Anyway.
Back in conversation with Engineer Kefa Seda, who is the Director General at the Public-Private Partnerships Directorate, the PPP Directorate, and we were just understanding the PPP ecosystem. You told us, we discussed the unsolicited proposals, that's a PIP, privately initiated
proposals,
where Mariam is looking at, she has some ideas.
Yes.
Then there is the government-initiated proposals, and you said there are three. It can be open, it can be restricted, or direct tendering. So how is this done? And how different is it from the normal public procurement process?
Not any different if you look at the procurement process, because when you talk about open competitive process, it's a government initiated. So what you do, you do feasibility studies, you prepare procurement documents, you go to the market, and you solicit for bids to make good of a particular infrastructure which you want to put in place. That's basically a nutshell of what open competitive process is.
Okay.
Then you also have restricted, which you also initiate as government. Prepare documents, but because of the speciality required, you restrict it to a particular group of people who can only provide that specialized service. So you identify Miriam, you identify Mbugua, you identify Latif, and say, given your prowess or your speciality in, let me say, media-related, you're the only guys whom I can, so I focus on you. I tell you, give me bids. So you restrict it amongst the three of you to give bids. Okay. And then the normal process follows. On direct procurement, there's a need. Going to open process will take a long time, and there's an urgent need that needs to be fixed. So identify Mbugua to be this person who can deliver this on account of threshold A, B, C, D. Then I directly procure you to offer services. It's similar to how we do it under the Public Procurement and Disposal Act, not any different. On the flip side, PIP, as I said, that's a private sector initiated. They identify a need, come to government and say, I want to fix this need. Then it goes through the due process of review and evaluation.
Okay. So in this particular, in PPP, the investor comes in and they're willing to finance and construct whatever infrastructure project we have. Let's say it's a dam this time. So it's a big, giant water dam. Let's even say that, the government has done its feasibility studies and said we need a mega dam to rival Ethiopia. They have the river, we have streams, but we have God on our side. And we should make the Granda Renaissance Dam in Kenya.
Granda Renaissance Dam. That sounds like a proposal that's being made. There's someone writing that down, I promise.
That came too naturally.
Yeah.
So, Tatua Siri, but continue.
And then now we say, let's take it to open tender. What are these conditions? Are we going to come up with the conditions and say that we are looking for somebody who can finance, build, and operate it, and we are saying that we want you to pay yourself within 15 years, within 20 years, within 40 years? Do you stipulate the timelines for this project? Or is it the private sector that will come and say, I want to do this and I want to get repaid in 15 years?
Okay, if you look
20 years, or this is how much it should cost to do this. Because you've done the feasibility studies, then you also know the cost. Are you putting it out there and saying, I am looking for somebody who can do the Granda Renaissance Dam at, what's our GDP again? 14, 16 trillion shillings,
okay.
At 11 trillion shillings.
Okay.
And you pay yourself in 99 years.
When you go out looking for bids, it's not always an open book for you to write your story, because we do our feasibility and make a business case. And the business case many times is normally informed by sensitivity analysis that we do. Because when you invest $1 million, then we must also give you time to recoup your investment. So you invest X amount, then we look at how the revenue streams would be. That informs the duration. If you look at our PPP Act, it defines the maximum of 30 years. with a minimum of 5 years. So you can easily play around with that timing depending on the investment and the time required to recoup investments. So it's not an open-ended book for you to put anything and say, I want this project, I want to do it for 99 years. The law caps it at 30 years. We can make it 15 years depending on how the cash flows behave, or we can even put it 10 years. So once we look at your proposal and we benchmark with our feasibility, because the feasibility would give us a picture on how it looks like, and also together with the sensitivities. If at all the tariff on what is going to be 2 shillings, what would be the impact in terms of cash inflows, and what would be the impact over 15 years, over 10 years. And we model that around the modest returns, which you see in the market.
Okay.
Yes.
I know we touched on information leaks very briefly and moved on, but I'm curious to know what pain points exist when it comes to implementation of PPPs, pain points, failures that you've encountered, and how perhaps we're trying to fix it. But some of the pain points that you can point to.
Some of the pain points, one is on the currency. You find that most of our projects are denominated in hard currency, and that brings in FX risks, which is big time. If you do remember, some times back, our Kenya shillings to dollar went to nearly 160. And by extension, the implication is that the investor would want to be made good when there is that volatility. And that means we have to pay, or he has to adjust tariff, and it's a pass-through cost now to the end users. So we're trying to see how we can try mobilize local capital to see how that can be used in our infrastructure development. And I think recently, the Cabinet Secretary appointed a committee of experts to try and look how we can tap into these pension funds, insurance funds, for long-term investments for infrastructure. The other item is on capacity. Many of our contracting authorities are grappling with capacity on how to deal with PPPs. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we have in terms of turning around some of the PPP projects that we have. But the beauty is, as a gatekeeping institution, as a PPP Directorate, we are supposed to support them. But many a times we may not be there full time. So they've got obligations that they need to do. We wait for them to do, because the moment we also dip our hands in and then we wait, we come again and we want to review, we'll also be seen to be conflicted. So we do hand-holding. We provide transaction advisory services to some of these here to hand-hold them to see the PPP projects through.
What's this capacity gap? I mean, at this point, it's contracting.
Yeah.
Yes, it's public-private, but it's contracting, just like they would have done.
So when you initiate a project, you conceive it. You start from concept. Now, packaging that project should be the mandate of the contracting authority. If they don't have capacity to package it, do appropriate risk allocation, it becomes a problem. And therefore, as PPP Directorate, we step in to support them. We can support them directly, or we procure transaction advisors to support them through the process.
Okay. Yes. Is the Nairobi Expressway a PPP?
Yes, Nairobi Expressway is a PPP that came in as a privately initiated proposal. Yes.
There's worries, of course. Again, disclosure was a big issue for a while. Now we've seen, how to have disclosures for privately initiated PPPs. But are there sectors and areas, specifically, let me work with the Nairobi Expressway, where we have assumed liability, and by we I mean the government in this case and the taxpayer, assumed liabilities that should have been left to the private partner? For example, as far as our toll collections on the expressway, if there's a shortfall of revenue collections and toll collections on the expressway, it is the government which has to buffer that difference, if I'm not wrong. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct. And when you talk about risk allocation, these are normally negotiated elements within PPP space. And the cardinal principle, you allocate risk to the person who's able to handle that particular risk. So for Nairobi Expressway, it was a PIP. The revenue traffic risk was given to the private sector, meaning that if at all it makes losses, it doesn't have any recourse to government. That's what it means.
Okay.
But on the flip side, we've seen transactions, or there are transactions where that risk can be shared. We say these are the traffic volumes, these are the anticipated revenues that are projected. So what you do, when there's a shortfall, government provides a minimum revenue guarantee to make you good, or government tops up. And on the flip side, when there are excesses, then you share the revenue with government based on a ratio that has been negotiated. Yes.
Now, this calls for transparency.
Yes.
So people can now know.
Yes.
In this particular PPP, these are the negotiations, and these are the guarantees that have been issued.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it could also not necessarily be guarantees in terms of how much, who covers the shortfall. It could be guarantees in ensuring that you don't have competition during the period of your operation.
Sorry? Sorry? Let me get that.
That no other project of this nature or form shall be initiated around this area until I recoup mine, because now you're introducing competition to me.
And that is true, because we normally call them then non-compete kind of provisions, where we've done expressway, and to safeguard their commercial, all their investments or their returns in the future, you agree with the government within a radius of maybe 1 kilometer, you will not provide a similar highway, because at the end of the day, it will cannibalize your road. It will take away traffic. And it's normally applied to the extent that it doesn't jeopardize government intentional priority of what it wants to do. But many times, it's normally a safeguard for the private investor, because if at all tomorrow government can just wake up and say, I'm going to do this road closer to your road, what will happen? And by extension, it's a free road. Definitely it will dent the commercial or the business case for that particular project.
Right.
So those are normally, it's a standard practice to try and cushion the investor from such kind of happenings.
What informs then, because I'm looking, let me use the expressway again. The tolls collected go towards repayment for the loan. It's okay, that makes perfect sense. But then again, you look at a reduction in the number of motor vehicles that use the expressway, whatever the charges go up, right? So then who informs those decisions? How much can be charged? What would be the best way to charge for a toll road, if at all there's a toll road? Who does the feasibility study for, we can charge here, we can't charge here? Is it still, Kenya at the point, or does at some point, the PPP say, we're going to charge this, we're going to increase to this? There's so many questions then of, and it's a publicly used road, but there's someone private who needs to recoup the investment, and they're like, I'll charge you 1,000 bob if they want to, from James Gishuru to Mlolongo. Who stops that? If they can.
Thank you. Toll tariffs by extensions, that's always a regulated function under the Ministry of Roads and Transport. And just to clarify your point where you say tolls are collected to repay debt, it doesn't only meet the debt obligation. You collect tolls, you invested, you need to pay back your debt. This road is with you for the next 30 years. We're talking about Nairobi Expressway. You're developing within 2 years. The balance of 28 years, you have to do operations and maintenance. So you also have to meet your operations and maintenance expenses. You have to also to meet your tax obligations. You also have to pay your shareholders dividends. So it's always a cascade of cash waterfall that you need to meet your obligations to different parties under the particular project. Now, coming back to toll tariff, when you're negotiating or coming up with a project as a contracting authority, you come up with your feasibility studies, you do your scenario. If the investment cost is this, you do what we call a willingness to pay service to establish what Mbugo would be comfortable paying depending on your income. We also go to Latif and ask him, we want to do this road, how much will you be willing to pay? So out of that willingness to pay, it gives you a rough indicator on where you'd fall on what the toll tariff is. Then as a contracting authority, you make a decision that this would be the toll tariff. And that toll tariff that has been agreed is what you now put in to see how the cash flows would behave over the entire project life. So if at all you'll get your returns earlier, you reduce the project term. If at all it will go towards the 30 years, then you give it the maximum of 30 years. Now, during implementation, so many things happen. There could be FX shift. There could be interest rates at play. There could be variations. And it informs the need for you to adjust that tariff. So mechanisms for adjustments are normally provided for in the contract, but you don't have the latitude to adjust them on your own as a private entity. It has to go through a due process where the Ministry of Roads, who are the regulators, have to give a nod for you to apply it.
Okay.
Excuse me, engineer.
Yes.
During the time that you're running this project for the next 30 years, there's maandamano.
Yes.
And people come and they burn tires on your road, or they destroy some of the infrastructure you've erected there. Who bears that cost? Who's carrying that risk?
It all depends on how the event came into play. If it's just normal protester action where government is not involved, the duty of care starts with the investor to safeguard that particular investment. Because there are normally mechanisms provided for him to call on to government to facilitate, if at all, the investment is at risk. So quite a number of transactions is given number of days through which he can safeguard, beyond which now it becomes a government responsibility.
Gosh, that's interesting, case by case. The conversations on healthcare and PPPs, how have those progressed? Because there's rising cost of healthcare, even the conversation we just had. PPPs could bring those down, but does it also risk privatizing public service, if that makes sense? But what do those conversations look like right now?
Yeah.
As it stands now, we've got quite a number of PPPs targeting the healthcare space. We have now the ultra-modern Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, where we're providing 3,000 capacity for trainees and also providing 800 accommodation for students. But that's not primarily on the direct healthcare. Now, we have also the Meru Cancer, which is coming up, a project that recently got approval, where we want to put up a 50-bed capacity to take care of cancer patients. And this is something that we think would be a big-time game changer, because we are extending services to the people who are underserved. Because many times you find people, the only thing they know, they have to come to Nairobi, and it's expensive. So if we can take these healthcare facilities machinery, why not? And this is something that we think will be a game changer come the Meru side is Isiolo, to take care of such patients. In the coastal region, we also have the Pwani Teaching and Referral Hospital somewhere in Kilifi, where we're going to put up a 450-bed facility, where the private investor is going to provide the infrastructure, provide the facility, but the day-to-day operations will be done by the Ministry of Health together with the Pwani Teaching.
Right.
And these will also reduce on the delays for referral cases that people have to come Nairobi or wherever. So it will take care of patients within those zones.
I'm thinking through Pwani Teaching and Referral, Moi Teaching and Referral, level 6 public hospitals. How does this investor recoup their investment? Because I understand a private hospital, how it works. They charge you an arm and a leg and they make their money back. I understand how a public hospital works. The government, through taxpayer money, funds that.
Reimburses.
Yes, reimburses that. So now when there's a private entity looking to recoup investments and these are public facilities, how will they get their money back?
If you look at what I've defined in terms of scope, and let me put this, which is important, health function is a social good. And many times these are cross-subsidized by government. You do what you need to do, but the government appropriates the additional to make you good. From the feasibilities that we've done for the, let me talk about Meru Cancer and Pwani Teaching Referral Hospital. Initially, we had started with Pwani at 200-bed capacity, but because of affordability issues, we descoped it to 450 on account of cash inflows from patients that we contemplate that would be used now to recoup investments from the services that they'll be consuming. Remember, the private will only be providing the facility and equipment. The operations will still be done, so that also helps in reducing the operational cost for the hospital. So that's how we scoped it, and we did the number crunching, and we agreed to reduce it to a 450. But all over the world, normally subsidized by government. So in case there are shortfalls, then government has to appropriate to make good. But it's a good thing for government to do, given where we are.
I have to say I'm surprised, unless it's just lack of knowledge, I'm surprised that PPPs with regards to healthcare haven't come in sooner? Because I feel like it could be the partnership that closes the gap that we're seeing.
Yes.
Number one. Number two, are there also opportunities in other sectors and industries that perhaps haven't been explored, where public-private partnerships could actually make a difference in just closing certain gaps? But when it comes to healthcare, unless I've missed it, I feel like this is this could close the gap. If we're struggling with high costs, then private sector comes in and is able to expand capacity, etc. Is there a reason that the uptake hasn't been as obvious?
Not really.
You look like you want to. You're like, let me throw a spanner in the works.
The return on investment is
oh,
the
it's
issue
actually
here. Because you can't charge what you charge at a private hospital. So as an investor coming into a public hospital, if you're doing facilities, for example, the physical structure and then equipping it, that's a lot of money. That would take a long time to recoup, even if you were charging.
For an investor, it's not attractive.
Yeah,
it's
just that's my.
What's the business case?
It's not attractive.
I could
but
do the same thing and run it and own it forever.
Right.
And pass it on to my children.
Precisely. It's not attractive, but to the extent government can chip in, that it makes it bankable. So why can't I invest in it as a private sector?
I see. Government could provide the land, Mariam.
Yes.
You see?
Okay.
You don't have to buy the land.
And in many cases, it's government that provisions the land.
Yeah. Then there could be some tax incentives here
Yes.
to come and do it.
Okay.
So there are all those things that then would mean that
Make a business case.
yeah, put in the money there, do a hospital, and you're a serial investor. What you're looking for is a return.
And it's not only that.
You're a pension fund.
Yeah.
Do it here, put it here, 30 years, you get your
money
return,
back, yeah.
invest into something else.
Keep it moving.
And it's not only that, Latif, because if you look at the windows, we've got what we call the government support mechanisms. That's the window where we provide credit enhancement instruments to make projects bankable or to make it attractive for investors. So there's one element where you could provide tax incentives, but there's also a delicate balance. We are where we are in our fiscal space. So to what extent would you give these tax incentives and you still need this money? So focus is more into targeting exemptions on imports, but on these other taxes, we see how we can make good because we still need the money. But it's something that is made on a case-by-case basis, was presented. On the GSG government support mechanisms, quite a number of instruments, as I indicate, minimum revenue. If at all you're unable to raise revenues, then government can provide that guarantee. It's an instrument that is available in many DFIs. It's a question of government negotiating with DFIs to provide it. So it becomes first call when you don't make good in terms of your revenues. Then we also have what we call the viability gap funding. So from onset, you do a feasibility, you realize with this costing, the project is not going to be viable.
Right.
So what happens is government has to provide something like a grant upfront to reduce on the costs. But then at the end of the day, you still target to get your revenues.
Okay. I'm thinking Adani is the name that comes to mind when you think PPP in Kenya. It's the name that brought PPPs into the limelight for a lot of people, even though they have been in existence for a long time. But that was more scandal than, perhaps the good side. Now, the ethics issues of getting into business with Adani, which had issues in home country elsewhere, were, yes, quite problematic. That is no longer the case here, and we do now have at least mechanisms for disclosure as far as any privately initiated PPP. However, what safeguards are there for ethics issues around privately initiated PPPs so that another Adani doesn't come and try to initiate something, and then we find ourselves in the same spot? Outside of, I know you said the contractor would look through, you said that, yes, but there's the ethics question, because if I'm initiating the PPP, I could meet all the other threshold. For Kenha, they'll be like, yeah, you'd be the right person to do all, Nairobi Magadi. But if they look deeper into Mariam Enterprises, there's some ethical issues.
I don't know why whenever we talk about PPPs, it's Adani that comes in.
You know why? It's because
Nairobi Expressway came before Adani. It's a successful story.
True. It's a top of mind thing.
I'll get back to that particular. And it's a very good question, and it's something that we really need to talk to. Because out of the Adani, there are big lessons that we've learned, and is what informed the reason why that circular on disclosure had to be put in place and circulated to all contracting authorities for purposes of compliance. Ethics is a big issue. the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Agency, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? They released their surveys on corruptions. And the findings were more on areas of service delivery where Kenyans consume services. That does not mean that PPPs are immune to corruption. Corruption can happen anywhere. But talking about the safeguards, the first thing that we do, and it's critical just to tap into the experiences we had with the Danny, is to undertake an in-depth due diligence on who your partner is. Because you need to establish that the cash that is coming in are not proceeds of money laundering or proceeds of corruption. And besides the due diligence that we do, because what we normally do is you come as a private entity who wants to invest. Most of the time they are corporate bodies, not persons. And we do lifting of the veils behind to see who is behind this entity. And we go further to see who are the shareholders, just to make sure that we are good. For those of you who know, the Nairobi Urban Toll Road back in the 1990s, we were supposed to do the section between JKIA to Westlands. That is in the 1996. But then, due to this due diligence exercise, the World Bank had to put a stop because there was somebody who was blacklisted and they had to raise a red flag, and that was the end of that particular project. And this is something we want to see from now henceforth. In-depth due diligence on the persons presenting these things. Then on the other element, we also need to find a way, because we've got these whistleblower mechanisms, with something that we need to safeguard and publicly talk about. If somebody detects a corrupt dealing, then they should be given that safe haven to whistleblow and make it known to the relevant authorities. We also have independent oversight authorities who have the mandate to do audits on PPP projects in case there are any dealings that are going on, to investigate if at all there are any dealings. And these are mechanisms that can easily help us deal with corruptions. On the flip side, besides government doing due diligence on the private entities, we also have lenders who come in. And lenders also have their layers on due diligence on government and by extension to the private party, because they don't want reputational risks on the investments through debts which they're providing to the project. So what they normally do is to provide an independent verifier or independent engineer who does due diligence on the project to make sure that the feasibility studies that were done by government make sense in terms of investment. Two, they also do due diligence on the private party, just to know who is this guy we are going to give 70% of the project cost in terms of debt. Because that's big money. In case things go south, they easily lose. Because if you look at our project agreements, if at all there are any breaches touching on corrupt dealings, then they forfeit their debt, they forfeit their equity. And that's a big time risk which the lenders would not want to put into their books. So we've got quite a number of layers just to see how to safeguard. Stakeholders, sensitization, being transparent to the public, these are mechanisms that can help us deal with corrupt dealings. Yes.
Let me give you an example of a story that's been in the Business Daily lately. And this is on Rasli Bahari, which is proposing to put up a desalination plant in Lamu. Now, it's been here, and the reason why it's here is because one of the key shareholders, Vali Lee Sabitsky Jr., who's now dead, but was involved in another deal that had problems back in the US on how they were fundraising, and it was a project to be done in Kenya. And that has been raising questions of, is this company now being vetted better than the last time? And also, is that history being taken into account as you are vetting for the project now? So how do you respond to that?
All pieces of information that come to fore must be taken into account. That project was cleared to get into negotiations. Negotiations have not happened. And one of the preconditions or prerequisites for negotiation was that Ministry of Water does an in-depth due diligence on this private entity. And this was way back in April. So to date, we are still waiting for those documentations. Once we receive them, then we'll also review and make a determination. But the case that has come, which we saw, it's something that we'll also have to dig in and find out what really is happening.
Another one is the Northern Corridor, Mombasa into Uganda. there have been talks, Mombasa, Nairobi have an expressway. In fact, that one has just been ongoing. America, Uhuru goes to America, signs deal, comes back. I don't know what happened to the deal. Ruto goes to America, signs deal, comes back. I don't know what has happened to that deal.
There's been a diversion on that road for
whole issues.
15 years at least.
Wow.
And then from Westlands going all the way to Mau Summit, another conversation, not from Westlands, from Rironi Mau Summit. Uhuru goes to France, comes back with a deal. We are going to do an expressway from Rironi to Mau Summit. Ruto comes into office, cancel that deal. That thing was too expensive. Now we have another one. There's China plus NSF. I mean, what all you said, it's not just NSF, but the pension companies in Kenya involved. What's going on? Are you people not vetting?
That's a very good question, and I don't think it's a question of vetting because, as I did allude earlier, the Northern Corridor was part of the first mover PPP projects under the highway sector, and we were targeting to do the Second Nyali Bridge, which is just off the Northern Corridor as you go towards Malindi. Then we had the road from Mombasa coming into Nairobi. Then we had Nairobi to Mau Summit, and by extension, Southern Bypass, which was supposed to be a reliever for the traffic going through town. Back then, we had not conceived Nairobi Expressway, which currently is serving Nairobians pretty well. We did feasibility for Nairobi Mombasa. Let me start with Nairobi Mombasa. And when we're just concluding, we got a proposal from the Americans. That was back then Bechtel. But that was not a PPP. For clarity, that was an EPCF. Where
you have to tell us what an EPCF is.
Extra plus
engineering
corridor.
It's just the traditional
EPCF.
procurement where you provide the infrastructure, you engineer, you procure and contract, but then F, you come with the financing. It's not government financing. Okay. And it's
engineer, procure, construct,
contract,
yes.
Finance. Engineer, contract, procure, finance.
Yeah, finance.
EPCF.
So that was not a PPP, but then it was supposed to be converted as a PPP for operations and maintenance once the asset is put into place. Quite a number of studies were done. The proposal was presented to government, but given that it was touching on debt, the decision was made that the project was costly and it was going to raise the debt burden, and therefore it was abandoned. That was not a PPP. Fast forward, we received a proposal from Usahihi, that is the ever-strong capital for Nairobi Mombasa. They got the approval to go to project development phase where they do feasibility studies, they do number crunching and make their submissions to us. That was done at the beginning of the year. Around May, Kenya reviewed the proposals. At the point when Everstone Capital was submitting, they had shareholders. We did due diligence on the shareholders. Perfect. They were good to invest and they were given a green light. Come towards the end of last year, or when they were making their submission, one of the shareholders dropped. And that shareholders was bringing significant capacity in terms of financing based on their financial statements and the engineering or the technical capacity. So when these guys dropped, it dented on their capacity to deliver the project.
Okay. So
they onboarded other EPCs, but on the financing element, it was still a red flag. And you didn't want to onboard somebody where raising equity would now become an issue. Because PPPs are funded through equity and debt. So we needed to have confidence that
has left the chat.
Those who were sitting with us on the table can be able to finance the equity component for the project. And that's why when it came to the floor of the committee to make decision, after Kenya's recommendation, we said abandon the project and go restructure. So it's upon Kenyans to make that call, whether they want to restructure and bring it back for consideration, or they want to...
It's upon who to make the call?
Kenya. They're the implementing institution. So it's upon them to make that call, whether they want to restructure, bring it back, or they want to take a totally different route.
Or abandon. On the 11th of July, Usahihi released a statement. And instead, we'd like to clarify the current status of the project. The feasibility studies are still undergoing review by KENHA, the PPP Directorate, and the National Treasury. We have also observed with concern recent statements circulating in the public domain and wish to clearly state that the information is inaccurate and does not represent the true status or progress of the project. We remain committed to transparency and continued collaboration with all relevant government bodies and shareholders. They're saying that the feasibility studies are still undergoing review by KENHA, yourselves, and the National Treasury.
Latif, allow me not to comment on that particular statement because I only comment on the government position.
Okay. So as we stand right now...
And the decision that was rendered is public. If you go to PPP Directorate website, you'll see the pipeline of projects and you'll see where we are at with Nairobi Mombasa. Similarly, I believe when you go to Kenya, you'll find the same position.
Okay.
Yes.
So the next one.
The next
one. French versus...
Now, the Nairobi Nakuru Mau Summit. And by the way, for your information, that has been my baby project.
So your baby project?
Yes. When I was at Kenya. So this was a project that also started off as part of the first mover PPP projects. And as I did allude, we had 5 projects. And there was a deliberate decision made that given that we had 5 projects and there were pilots under the PPP road sector, a decision was made that we ran with Nairobi Nakuru. As a pilot, we see how the market would respond, then we can easily take the other 4 projects to the market. So Nairobi Nakuru was the front runner. Did every feasibility. In fact, if there's any project that we did adequate stakeholders engagement was Nairobi Nakuru. We did a lot of engagements in Nairobi. We did a lot of engagements in Nakuru. We did a lot of engagements.
In between.
Anyway, we tried. Fast forward, we negotiated, signed the contract in 2020.
With
the Rift Valley Highway Limited. The costings came in. We did our benchmarks. It made sense. Come 2022, when the dollar was a little bit, was fluctuating, we did a sensitivity. And the project cost shot up from, was it 120 to 160? And we were like, hey guys, do we really need to make this project? Because at the end of the day, it's incumbent upon government always to evaluate projects and make decisions, whether it was still affordable. And given that we didn't have certainty.
How much had been spent by the time you made this call when you're seeing that now it's going to 160? How much had already gone into the project?
That is on government side or on the private party?
On both sides. But let's go with government first.
On government, I can't really remember how much we had spent on the feasibility studies. It's something that I'll have to check. But must have been over 100 million, if I'm not wrong. If I'm not wrong, just to put the feasibility together, put the transaction documents together and go to the market.
Right.
On the private party side, they had spent up to, I think, was it $53 million US, and that's something they put when we were negotiating to terminate the contract. And that was more of in the designs they had done, the environmental and social impact assessment studies which they had done, the expertise they had engaged for advisory purposes, and operational costs.
Right. Yes. Then what were the penalties for now terminating the contract when you're already that far in, having already spent, them already having spent $53 million, us already having spent 100 million shillings?
So basically what they wanted was to be paid back their development cost, what they had plowed so far into the project. And something they consider is like a loss of opportunity, because it was assumed that if at all they would have invested this money elsewhere, they would have made something modest. So that is what was considered as part of their termination sum.
How much was paid to them?
Was it 6.2 billion?
6.2 billion.
6.2 billion.
So the 53, more or less the $53 million.
Yes, more or less, yes.
Yeah, maybe with a little extra.
Yes.
I'm asking that because we lose a lot of money to cancelled contracts. And yes, especially when they're cancelled, not illegally, but yes, any breach of contract will cost things. So I wonder then, what the fix is.
Why did we have to cancel?
Yeah, why did we have to cancel? He's explained
it's a fluctuation. It's a fluctuation of the dollar. Did we have to cancel? Could we have suspended?
Okay.
Could we have paused?
Yeah, pause as opposed to cancel.
Let me take us back. It's something that I didn't speak to. When we were doing feasibility studies, it was known that the revenues to be collected would not make the private entity recover the investments. So there was bound to be shortfalls. But then we did a sector diagnostic that is on the road sector to establish what are the budgets available that would support these shortfalls. And there were budgets available. Fast forward, come 2020, 21, 22, we onboarded quite a number of projects. And that's the time we saw we had the Mau Mau roads and everything onboarded. And that shrunk the envelope that was available. That would support this, because the revenue shortfalls was going to be between 5 to 10 years. After that, the project was going to raise surpluses. And it was on that basis that we said that if it was going to raise over 500 billion over the project term, why don't we just take a shot for it? But then when we onboarded all these other projects, dollar decided to misbehave, then a decision was made. Because that would mean then government would pay, because the shortfalls were ranging between 4 billion to 10 billion on a quarterly basis. And we were going to pay a net of, I think, nearly 50 billion for the first 10 years. So a decision was made comparing these 50 billion to be paid against this. Why don't we terminate this, descope the project, because it was gold-plated, if you ask me, because all we wanted was Kenyans to have an experience that is an highway, that they've got that benefit of paying tolls. So a reconsideration was made, then we terminate it, see how we can descope it, but make it affordable for Kenyans to use.
Descoping means redesign?
Redesigning, yes.
Okay, so what's the difference now between that one and this new deal?
We had provided quite a number of structures. And you know, concrete steels are the cost drivers for road projects. Those have been optimized. And we contemplate seeing a reduction in price based on the feasibility that Kenya did, an updated one. We're waiting to see now the proposals that would come from the unsolicited proposals, because what they submitted to us were more of, they had different options, so it couldn't speak to a particular cost. So when the decision was rendered, Kenya decided to freeze on the scope, so that when they are submitting, it's based on something that the government wants. Yes.
And what are the government's 2 to 3 years from now? What would you say are the government's priorities when it comes to PPPs?
Infrastructure.
And in fact, I wonder whether infrastructure alone is a measure of success. I'm like, are there satisfaction, what do you call it? Indices. Service indices. Because infrastructure is one thing, but there's the service. So yeah, what's a priority? And then based on everything you've learned, how do you safeguard so that we're not losing so much money?
Quite a number of things that we're trying to put in place. One is to make sure that we've got a balanced risk allocation. As I did say, the strategies now is to have a rethink on who should bear the traffic risk, whether we want to share it or whether we want to let the private party bear it. Something akin to what we have on Nairobi Expressway, so that if at all there is any rising obligation, it doesn't have to government to appropriate to make good. But we've got quite a number of projects which we're targeting, priorities ranging from energy sector, food security. I believe you've heard of the Galana Kulalu food security project, where we put 20,000 acres under irrigation, under the National Irrigation Authority. And that's a project that attained commercial close. We signed off. And I believe you've seen photos of those leadership visiting that particular project. And it's doing well. And we do anticipate that we'll get 720,000 bags of maize, with 160,000 bags of beans, and we intend to upscale it, because food security is a big thing for this country. Now, on transport, under road sector, I think we've discussed that.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
Now, under transport, we are targeting to expand the Kenya ports, our port in Mombasa. We also plan to do something within Lamu, As you know, we've got 3 berths that are operating now. We want to see if we can enhance that and attract even the bigger ships for purposes of transshipment along our Lamu port. We also have special economic zones that are coming in within Lamu, so those ones are also targeted. We want to do feasibility study and see how that we can take to the market. I also alluded to the health sector. We've got quite a number of hospitals we are targeting. We've got Pwani, we've got Meru, we've got Moi Teaching and Referral, and something that I never spoke to, we are also providing accommodation facility for healthcare givers for Kenyatta National Hospital, which will also be a game changer. And by extension to families or caregivers will be taking care of their patients within the hospital.
That's quite good.
Sorry.
No, I was going to ask, but I hope I don't throw you off your train of thought. But what's the oversight? Who is the oversighter of all of this? I'm trying to think through public interest. And I know you've spoken to it and you've spoken to the contracting authorities doing their due diligence. Is there an overall oversighter for all PPPs such that just to make sure that public interest is topmost and nothing slips through the cracks?
The PPP Directorate is just discharged with the mandate of oversight. Okay. We have to ensure that public interest is met. At all times, the projects are affordable to government and affordable to end users. Having said that, the parliament also comes in to oversight and see what are you guys doing with PPPs. Are you living by what you said, or you covenanted other your contractual agreement? Are you following the due processes? So it becomes an auditable process as well by parliament.
Outside of affordability though, public interest is affordability for sure, it's a big one, but there's other things, especially when I think of the healthcare sector and even roads, again, there's safety issues, things like that. Yes, what capacity does the Directorate have to oversight every industry basically, whether it's healthcare, whether it's roads, construction, everything?
Okay, the first duty of care falls with the contracting authority. They're the specialists when it comes to, if you talk about Ministry of Health, that's their domain. If you talk about ports, KPA comes in, that's their domain. They've got the technical expertise just to make sure there is technical compliance, there is legal compliance, there are safeguards compliance. Then above it, we also have what we call independent experts who have a duty of care to government and to the private party, just to make sure that what was covenanted under the project agreement are met. So they are independent of the transactions. They advise and provide oversight. Besides that, we have now the PPP Directorate that also oversights project. But given that we also have lenders on board, as I did allude earlier, they also bring their independent verifiers during implementation to make sure that the contractor is doing what is expected to do. Government is also meeting their part of the bargain. If the contractor doesn't, many lenders normally have what we call in-stepping rights. They can come in and say, Mariam, kazi yako si poa, ebu enda.
Who contracts the independent experts? Not the ones for the lenders, but yes.
For the lenders do their own.
That's different, yes.
But now between the government and the private party, it's a joint exercise.
So
it's a joint exercise. Yeah, it's a 50-50.
Okay, because I'm looking at, because if I am Kenha, let me not use an example of Kenha, but whoever I am as a contracting agency, I could be, leaning towards a PPP because my numbers are not good and I really need this. So then my duty of care might be compromised. I'm not saying it happens, but you can see a possibility. That's what I was looking for, the independent oversight.
For somebody else.
And then on your end as the Directorate, like you said, you'd need capacity for every sector as well. So then, which
food security, energy,
also remember, there's the line ministry. There is the Auditor General, there is Parliament. If Parliament did its job, and as the Auditor General does, and all these things,
we wouldn't be in a lot of these problems.
As we come to conclude, Kefa, let's quickly talk about the symposium.
Yes.
Because you had said that you're hosting a symposium.
Yes.
Is it next week?
Yes.
So is this like a roadshow where you're saying these are all the projects that are available for PPP? Come ye, with all your monies and ideas.
Yeah.
We've got quite a number of objectives, and as you've rightfully put it, the symposium is coming on the 11th of this month, that is Monday next week. We've invited quite a number of people, ranging from cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries, investors, DFIs, lenders, some of these local capital institutions, and even individuals who will be interested to hear what we'll be presenting. And basically, our objective for the symposium would be to reiterate government commitment towards implementation of PPPs, and also to foster confidence in the PPP process, through our transparent process, through stakeholders and engagement, and clarity in our communication. After the symposium, you'll see quite a lot of messaging going out from the PPP Directorate, and by extension, the contracting authorities on the PPP projects that we have. And also part of the symposium will also be unveiling the PPP projects that we'll be taking to the market. Our focus for this financial year, we are targeting 5 projects, which are in different phases, but we'll also be unveiling new projects which we want to take to the market under a competitive process.
Okay.
But we'll also be talking about the 33 projects which are in our pipeline, just to interest the private sector for purposes of investment. Okay. And lastly, to see how we can collaborate with the private sector to accelerate uptake of PPPs.
Right.
Yes.
In a minute, 30 seconds actually, because Kenyans have anxiety around the word PPP, what would you tell them to put them at ease? Clearly, we know, you understand why.
PPP is an alternative method for procurement. PPPs will help us deal with the challenges we have in our fiscal space. We are on top of the game to ensure that the due process is followed. We engage with the public. We talk with the public on a day-to-day basis to inform them on the progress we're making on different projects, so that these issues surrounding secrecy, transparency can be dealt with, so that we can also foster confidence on our processes.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think that's a good place to wrap it. But thank you so much for spending time with us. I think we'll continue this conversation and broaden it, maybe even go sector by sector, because it's important to know.
Yes.
Mariam Enterprises is not bidding to dual Nairobi.
Oh my goodness.
To dual Magadi.
However, Mariam.
Why?
Why, Mariam? We were here, we were going to co-sign.
Don't tiptoe.
With your chest, go in.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, Kefa Seda, engineer there. He's the Director General for Public-Private Partnerships. It is on the tanki dogo at the National Treasury. And of course, it's been a great conversation. Pia tulikuwa na Daktari Oma Oluga discussing SHA. Is it working? Is it not? Thank you so much for also tuning in, for giving us your feedback. Tomorrow is Thursday. We're looking forward to a great conversation kama kawaida. Catch the last word, by the way, on YouTube, Bado, if you did not watch. And of course, all Fixing the Nation, your favorite interviews. Ukisearch to Fixing the Nation on YouTube.
Utatuona. KICC is happening now. We're transitioning.
Yes.
Hopefully. Crossing over.
For a live event. Wacha tuone mapocho pale yana happen at the KICC.
Kabla nisahau. Hiyo symposium itafanyika pale Serena Hotel.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Lest we forget.
All right, we've got the Kenya Academic Sports event happening at the KICC. And then, of course, on Nation FM, we'll be having Claudia Naisabwa and Brian Aseli on the Vibe Shift. Tupatane kesho 6 to 10 a.m.
There's a kind of bank assurance intermediary that really allows you to relax because you know you'll be good. That's Coop Bank Assurance Intermediary for you. Get covered real good through Coop Bank Assurance Intermediary.
Na sijui kwa nini hutaki kuniambia?
If I were to tell you the truth, you'll not be able to sleep.
Wazazi wako wanakuanga wapi?
Tayari amepata court order to stop the handing over process.
Unataka kupakulia chakula mchawi kama huyu nyoka huyu? Relax. Calm down.
Kama jiona wewe ni mwanamke umetimia 1 mpaka 10, niguse.
Norma, brought to you by Nivea Nourishing Cocoa Body Lotion.
Nivea Nourishing Cocoa, now with 100% pure hyaluron. It moisturizes for longer than ever. When our skin looks this good, we show up more confidently. Here, here, and here. New Nivea Nourishing Cocoa, now with hyaluron and cocoa butter. Skin is for feeling it. Nivea is for skin.
Kenya, are you ready? The Kenya Academy of Sports invites you to its inaugural Sports Career Fair Expo and Symposium this Wednesday, 6th to 8th August at the KICC. Themed Exploring Diverse Careers in Sports. This groundbreaking event brings together experts, mentors, and opportunities from across the sporting world, from coaching and physiotherapy to sports media, management, and more. The event will be graced by Honorable Salim Mvuria, the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports. Catch the opening ceremony live on NTV this Wednesday, 6th August, as we open doors to the future of sports.